Thank you for the generous introduction. Good afternoon, folks. On behalf of the staff and the board of directors, I welcome every one of you for our 75th anniversary celebration. What a special event to have Honorable Kamala Harris be our speaker. Thank you very, very much. And we have a lot to learn about her election. I mean, how so many, literally millions of voters came together. And among those that came together were the Latino vote and the immigrant vote that came and supported her. So it's something to learn about that, and I'll talk a little bit later about diversity in our state and so forth. I want to acknowledge the committee that organized this event. It's a wonderful event, and thank you for attending. It included Lou Butler, Cruz Reynoso, the Honorable Theldon Henderson, Bob Friedman, Clara Shin, and Danny Grossman. I also want to recognize our alumni, Don Ritchie, who's here, Cecilia Burciaga, Lou Butler, James Edgar, Jim Gaither, the Honorable Theldon Henderson, Ying Lyman, Mary Metz, Cruz Reynoso, and Richard Rosenberg. I think I got everybody who's here. And of course, I couldn't forget Kirk Wilson, who served as our president of the board for some 31 years and had such large impact for the work of California. And I want to talk about my first connection to the foundation. Tim asked me to comment about that. And my first connection to the foundation was actually when I was a Harvard College student. And I interviewed Cruz Reynoso for my show. It was a Chicano radio show for the Harvard College radio station. That was my first connection. And then, as mentioned earlier, in 1976, I co-founded Radio Bilingüe. And as mentioned, we were 26-year-olds, former farm worker children who wanted to hear those voices of Mexican-American farm workers and other Mexican-Americans uncensored by the mainstream. That's very important, because uncensored means somehow you gotta be self-sufficient or have funding that it doesn't have any strings. So Radio Bilingüe, is an important vehicle for reaching the kind of information that we need for farm workers, for immigrants, to have that dialogue that is so important in our community. And it was the Rosenberg Foundation, it was Kirk Wilson, who back in 1984 thought that the idea of Radio Bilingüe was really, really powerful, and suggested that we put together a news service that would be national, which became Noticiero Latino. And with that grant came introductions to the Ford Foundation and to other foundations, the Corporation of Public Broadcasting, and a validation of our work. So that's, I think, the legacy that it leaves, and I think the legacy of this foundation that took risks of funding, a group, including myself, not track record in fund development or administration or evaluations and so forth, but just a powerful idea and a passion for social justice that drew Kirk granted, he did his due diligence. He must have asked around a few, who's this Mixteco in Fresno, because he himself comes from a farm worker organizing background. So anyway, and then around that time, 84, 85, Kirk introduced me to Lou Butler, who's here today. And Lou, I believe at that time must have been about chairman of the board of this foundation. And he became aware of the changing demographics. And he thought, what an opportunity for California to become, or to be challenged to be, a true democracy. And so he invited me to become part of what became California Tomorrow, the new California Tomorrow. And that organization also included Tom Layton from Gerbode, who's here today. And eventually, Stuart Crow, who's here with me, here with us today, Antonio Hernandez, Bob Friedman, Susan Sandler, and many others. And of course, the president of the organization who became president was Laurie Olson. And the new organization's vision was to look at how the challenges of public education, the environment, and other social issues could be looked through a multi-ethnic lens for social justice and equity. And Rosenberg was one of the first funders of this enterprise as well. And my story is much at the heart of the Rosenberg Foundation. It's a story of a foundation that's willing to take risks, a foundation that funds projects at a critical beginning to advance critical social justice issues and willing to collectively dream of a better California. I can assure you as chairman of this board that commitment has not wavered and will not waver. So I think we should say what Cesar Chavez used to say in his day of organizing, which is, sí se puede. And I think that is my introduction to who I'm supposed to introduce, which is Kirk Wilson, who served, as I mentioned, some 31 years as president of this foundation. Kirk?